Aloha, everyone. Welcome back. Super excited for today's podcast. I have a dynamic duo with me today. Can you please welcome Michael Barnhart and Suzy Sevier? Welcome to the show.
Woo! Excited to be here. Thanks, Pili.
Yeah, we're super excited.
Super excited to have you here. So Suzy and Michael are founders of Adventurous. I love it. Adventurous Real Estate Investors. Their adventure began at a TEDx event. The theme was reset, and it changed their lives. They took the event to heart and used that theme as a launching port to regain control of their lives, secure financial freedom, give back to the community, and discover their why. They want to share this journey with others by helping others check off their bucket list items and achieve the greatest ROI, return on impact. Oh, I have like goosebumps right now. That is the best bio. So let's dive deep. So tell me about this TEDx event, because it sounds like that was like the turning point for you. And why was that a jumping off point?
Yeah, no, I'd love to go into that further. So there's two parts to it. One, that is where Michael and I met. And so like it just brings it all together, right? Which is great. But it was a whole day event with like 8 different speakers, and the speakers all had different themes. I mean, the whole theme was reset, but their topics were different. So some were about tattoos, solitary confinement, religion, beatboxing, and the whole meaning behind it was think differently, like reset your thinking about these certain topics, because a lot of them like have negative connotations when they don't need to, you know? And so from there, like once we happened to meet, at the event and just continuing on that conversation, it was like, hey, if we are going to meet at this event, which is already like a miracle within itself, right? How are we going to live this on throughout our life? And what it was like asking more why questions, whether that be to ourselves, to others, just to dig deeper, because like the mind is a huge complex space, right? And so just to learn more and want to do more was really like how it changed our way of thinking about everything.
So dig a little bit deeper inside into this why of yours.
No, I'd love.
I'm gonna let my son walk past. For my editors, please edit this part out.
Leave it in.
Mommy life. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. I would love it if you would dive into that deep why of yours.
Absolutely. So our why, like the short version, is to serve beyond our 4 walls. And what that means to us is that whether it's real estate investing or not, how can we create like a 1% impact on at least one person every day of our lives? And we are going beyond that because like Michael was a professor, will be a professor again, and I've been a mentor and a coach. And so with that, education is truly, truly important to us. And so even serving beyond our 4 walls fit into education, because we wanted to try to find out a way to like educate others outside of a traditional classroom setting, that specifically that Michael is used to. So actually our like long-term why is to build schools in developing countries. So once Michael can retire in the military in 7 years, we will no longer have to have like a traditional home base that military life is so used to. So we want to be able to travel the world, live in these communities, figure out how we can serve them best. And if building a school is part of that plan, then that's what we want to do. And that's how we like continue on our love for education just outside of the classroom.
My face hurts so much. My smile is so big right now because what an amazing why. I mean, just going back to you meeting at a TEDx event and taking some serious action. So many people go to these huge events and they're just like, they kind of just sit on the information. You guys met each other, came together and have this extraordinary why. So tell me how this huge why, this all-encompassing goal of yours fits into real estate.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing, how it fits in real estate is we see that people are leveraging real estate as a tool, right? So you can make quite a bit of money in real estate if you do it right. And we see a lot of people, we saw several people who were then leveraging that and using the money that they're making as a tool to then help others, right? And so we're like, wow, this is a really powerful vehicle to do that. And so we wanted to do that. And that's our whole plan is, we don't care about making the money. We do care about making the money, but we care about making the money because we want to use it as a tool in order to help others in the future.
I love it. I love how you're bringing the two together. And I love how you're leading with service instead of having that as a it's a bystander a lot of times. It's like oh, now I'm making the money, now I can do this. Instead, you're already thinking, you're forward thinking into how you can serve first, and then you're going to build it on top of that. I love this thought. I love this thought process. So for those who want to follow this thought process, how can they follow your train of thinking? How can they find you?
So there are two ways, actually. So we actually just launched a podcast, and it's called The Adventures of a Real Estate Investor. And the whole purpose behind it is that we bring on industry experts who are creating impact through real estate investing. And that really is a great place to create and think about your own ideas, because you hear so many of others, right? So if you think that your impact, is too small or too big, it's not. And because you hear other people who could look like you doing the same thing, like, we just want to give other people motivation that way. But then also, if they want to find more about it, they could go to adventurousrei.com, and we talk about return on impact all over our website as well.
Yeah. So if you go to adventurousrei.com/info, you'll be able to learn about our podcast, learn about how to make an impact leveraging real estate, and also connect with Suzy and I via LinkedIn and other platforms as well.
I love it. So let's talk about return on impact. You thought I was letting you go because I did the whole how can we find you question. I'm not letting you go yet, because I want to know more about return on impact and impact investing. How can people dive more into this? Because you mentioned whether or not you feel like you're doing more or less, or you're comparing yourself to other people's impact. How can people get over that mindset and just be impactful?
That's a fantastic question, actually. So the way I think about it is that there are almost 8 billion people on this planet. So if even half of us, or even a smaller fraction of us, did something 1% better every day for ourselves or for somebody else, think of that ripple effect that it has. And that's how you start thinking about it, is that even if it's for you or for someone else, that's still an impact, because if you are working even on yourself every day, you can then create that courage to want to impact others. I mean, that's truly for me, the greatest way is that thinking about it, having those affirmations every day that I am a person who creates impacts in this world, visualizing how you're going to create that impact. But if you want to think about it at a larger scale, I mean, I would really just sit down and write about the things that you think would make a difference, and then come back to them a day later, and then come back to them a day later again, just to make sure that you've thought about it, you've processed it, do it outside, do it on pen and paper, because then you have all the distractions of your computer taken away. Try to not have your phone around you. Just truly get into the mindset where that is what you're focusing on. And I mean, once you figure out what you're meant to do in this world, because we strongly believe that everybody was born to make an impact. If you just allow yourself to think about it, that passion and energy will drive you moving forward. And that's really the best outcome that you can have, because then you have this fire inside you that will allow you to get where you need to be in life. You have just so much more drive once you figure it out.
Suzy, you're my new best friend. Your turn.
I was just saying how we're kind of implementing that whole ROI, a different ROI, the return on impact, into our business model is that, when we underwrite a property, we take a step back and when we start building the business plan, take a step back and we say, how is this serving, or how is this benefiting the residents that are living there, right? And we have to make sure that our business plan aligns with the best interest of the residents, whether that's, adding certain amenities, or improving the exterior conditions to make it safe. Maybe adding a security gate or something like that. Like just things like that, like in order to really make sure that our residents are thriving and not just surviving.
I love it. I love it how in your underwriting, you're already taking care of your tenants. I mean, as multifamily professionals, we try to do that to the best of our abilities. But the thing is, it sounds like that is one of your drivers. We want to take care of our tenants. We have a duty towards our tenants. We have a duty towards our investors. But we take on these communities. We become a part of these communities, and it is our duty to take care of them. So I love the fact that you are forward facing on that you look towards the impact that you're having on those communities. So for multifamily investors that are listening to this right now, how can they make sure that they sort of follow your lead in being forward facing, and how they can impact their communities in a positive manner?
No, that's a great question. So like what we did, so I can give like 2 examples, is that like, and think beyond traditional just in-unit renovations, right? Because if somebody has just like a nice apartment, but nothing else, like what does that do for them? So like for us specifically, we're adding in unit washer and dryers. And especially because COVID just happened, like we don't want to send them out into the world if they're uncomfortable. And besides the fact that, I mean, I know that if you're sitting at a laundromat, that takes hours. So like we're giving them hours back in their day, but just other ways. When you're thinking about exterior works, like something that we did was a survey to ask what they actually wanted done or what they want to see, because then right there, we just know, I mean, that's the greatest part. Like resident events, like make sure that like part of your like reserves or capex that you have includes money to do resident events, because really you want to create that community. And like the biggest thank you really can get like year after year is resident retention. So that if your resident retention is high, then you are truly making a difference. So think about it that way too. If you think to yourself, like, how do I become creative with this? I mean, just think as a tenant, what would you, or a resident, what would you want at the community that you live in? What would make you want to stay?
And what a better way to figure that out than to ask your community what they want. So many times we look at these communities as assets. They're assets, and we're not thinking them as they're people living in the building. So when you do that, when you ask them, it gives them more of it becomes more human than just an asset. It becomes more human than just numbers on a spreadsheet. It becomes more human than just the market you happen to be diving into. So Suzy and Michael, this has been such an enlightening conversation. Before I do let you go, what are some words of wisdom, some action steps that investors out there can take to have more return on impact?
So, I mean, I guess the action step is, okay, so I can put this 2 ways. So if you are already investing, like you have properties and you're like, hey, I want to implement this, definitely just do the survey. You can come up with 5 questions, and to even make sure that you get that people to return it, you can add a $5 gift card to it, like just because that's truly how you can drive people in. Because if we want incentives, like other people want incentives, like we're not the only ones. But then if you haven't taken down your first property yet and you're like practicing underwriting and you're thinking about ways that are just outside of the box, just add in like the creative ways. Like I said, think like, will this, I guess, asset still work if I add in my purpose? Will this asset still work if I want to add these amenities? Just think beyond their traditional in-unit renovations is really what it is. And if you don't feel like you can, I promise Google will help you. I'm sure you could easily Google how, like, what can I add to boost the NOI, but not have more expenses for the residents. You know, plenty of articles will pop up. One, I wrote one about it. So I was like, if you want to find it, yeah, you can go to our website. But I promise there are ways that you can make a difference where you're not continuing to add expenses to the residents month after month after month.
Yeah, and another thing to that is one action item is aligning yourself with a property management company that is directly in line with your values, like your core values, and you resonate with them. Make sure, you know, one thing that we are so glad we found our property management company, and we have a tough time even thinking about a different market because we need to find that perfect property management company before you even think about the market. Like that's going to be our driver, right? So our property management company, they are so aligned with us and how we act and how we believe and how we think that like things like, hey, there's an emergency leak, you know, going on, or this resident came up after he took over a property. They had a leak in their unit, and they couldn't even walk into their kitchen because it was flooded, and it had been flooded for months before we even took over. And so they just made the decision to go ahead and replace it. Yeah, it costs, you know, quite a bit of money because we had to fix everything, the flooring, the cabinets, and everything like that. But now that resident can walk to his sink and actually do the dishes without having to go barefoot to get his feet wet, right? So just like things like that, like we don't want you to ask us to do things like that. Like those are just inherent things that you should take care of as a property
Just to
manager.
make sure that your tenants have the best possible place to live and that you are taking care of them. Suzy and Michael, thank you so very much. This has been so enlightening. I love your energy. I love your spirit. And I cannot wait to hear about what you do when you take that next step, when you level up. I cannot wait to have you back on. So Suzy and Michael, thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Pili. It was a pleasure being on your show, and we hope we've provided value to your listeners.
Yes, you definitely did. And to my listeners, if you love what you heard, please rate, review, subscribe, press all those buttons. And I am so grateful to you for listening. So much aloha, so much love, so much peace, and bye.